KZMB All Zombie Radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Limited Series Lounge. I'm joined by Takeerah, aka Connie Dixon for Life. And we are covering the third episode of the first season of the Jinx. I know, we're late. It's fine. Entitled The Gangster's Daughter. Hard R. Hard R on the gangster. um For those of you who don't know, we do this every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I don't know, we switch it up. Are we always going to cover the Jinx? Why no? Because we'd run out of episodes. But we will cover something that is considered a limited series. So you could see us doing that. All right, let me see. Okay, good. We're live. It's working. Great. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. The Gangster's Daughter is the name of the game in this episode. Again, directed by Andrew Jarecki, because they all are. And written by Andrew Jarecki, Mark Smerling, and Zach Stewart Pontier, because they all are as well. This episode aired on February 22nd of 2015 and had a just bombshell rating of 0.381. Yikes, I know, but interestingly enough, and again, you had to pay to have HBO. Who's going to do that? You know what I mean? I mean, we all do now, but back then nobody did. Over Rotten Tomatoes, so like the critic score is 90%, which is really good for a Rotten Tomatoes score, honestly. However, audience score is 91%. So, I mean, it's well received. It has been. And as all of you may know, came back for a second season in 2024. How does a documentary come back for a second season, you may ask? Well, there were updates in the case. so we saw a little bit more. All right. I did find something to read because this is what we're doing now. Oh, I would have read you another article by Esther Bloom from Vulture magazine, but you have to pay. I'm past my monthly allowance of free articles. So apparently it was one. Anyway, here is an article in Awards Daily TV. I don't know, stunning name. Written by Clarence Moy, and maybe it's good. I'm not really sure, but this was written February 23rd, 2015. So this was written the day after the episode aired by someone fresh. A fresh take on this. The article is entitled Review, The Jinx, The Gangster's Daughter. Straight to business. Just as last week's episode of the HBO docuseries The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst closed with the investigation into the disappearance of Kathy Durst becoming a cold case bound for the archives, this week's episode, The Gangster's Daughter, opens with a revisiting of the case 20 years later. What caused this? A tip from a prison stooge who claimed to have information on the death of Kathy Durst. The news caused renewed hope in Kathy's friends and family, and investigators, acting on new information, began to explore the former Durst lake house. They uncovered a large storage room hidden in a closet behind some shelves. It's rather shocking that given Kathy's mysterious disappearance, no one thought to search her last known whereabouts. After searching the house, removing entire sections of a bedroom wall, and sending divers to search the lake, investigators came up empty-handed. Further explanation led investigators to Susan Berman, a close college friend of Robert Durst who allegedly protected him from the press after Kathy's disappearance. Berman, the daughter of an infamous West Coast gangster, had a lot in common with Durst, including the loss of their mothers to questionable circumstances. Although it was never confirmed, numerous reports indicated that Berman believed her mother's death, officially labeled a suicide, was perhaps the result of foul play, which similar also to Robert Durst's situation, where he was told to watch his mother while she was on the roof, which was weird. Berman felt an incredibly tight kinship with Durst and was allegedly attracted to the sense of wealth and power he radiated. according to close friends, and she became his spokesperson during the days following Kathy's disappearance. The most interesting hypothesis forwarded in the episode is the theory that Berman was the one, not the police, to feed reporters the line that Kathy Durst had been seen that evening by her doorman as she was entering her building. The documentary cast doubts as to whether or not Kathy was actually seen that last evening, or if she even called in sick to medical school the following day. Many believe it was Susan Berman, not Kathy Durst, who placed that call. So, what happened to Kathy Durst? Unfortunately, there is no evidence that she is dead or that Robert Durst had anything to do with it. When interviewed by Jarecki, Durst blinks and stutters his way around an answer. He doesn't know that she's dead. He doesn't know where she is. He suspects she may be dead. There's a bit about collect calls placed from New Jersey to the Durst company, and Jarecki tries to pin Durst down on who made these calls. Durst was famous for making collect calls because he was too cheap to pay for the calls himself. If these calls were placed by Durst in New Jersey, then it would pinpoint a potential location for Kathy's body, if Durst killed her at all. So 20 years later, how does Susan Berman continue to feature in all of this? The Los Angeles Police Department reaches out to her to question her about Kathy's disappearance, and she relays this information to Durst over the phone, commiserating with him over his seemingly endless persecution. A few short weeks later, on December 24th, 2000, Susan Berman was murdered in her Los Angeles home, shot in the head. Jarecki includes crime scene photos, very little of the body, to prove the untouched nature of her home, leading police to believe Berman knew her killer. As news of Berman's death reaches the East Coast, those who were investigating Kathy's disappearance immediately thought of Robert Durst. The timing was incredibly convenient, as she was about to be questioned in the case. Jarecki again tries to probe Robert Durst for additional information. Cracks in the blank slate that is his face, but he gets nowhere. Los Angeles investigators consider Berman's family involvement with the mob as the cause of her death. She was working on journalism and television projects involving the history of the mob and reportedly had a huge story to break. Had she lived, of course. The problem with the mob involvement angle is this. A letter was mailed to the Beverly Hills police the day before her body was found. Clearly, the murderer wanted her body found before decomposition occurred. Was this murder the action of someone who ultimately cared for her? Jarecki then takes a seemingly odd turn in his exploration of the case. He's a gifted filmmaker, drawing the audience towards conclusions he clearly holds dear. He begins to explore Susan Berman's financial state. She was in debt and behind several months on her mortgage. She had written several screenplays, but Hollywood wouldn't bite. Out of quote-unquote desperation, according to friends, she began asking for money from acquaintances and kept a log of the transactions on her personal computer. Who do you think appeared on that list? Yep, Robert Durst, who had provided Berman several tens of thousands of dollars, 50,000 to be exact. The immediate suspicion is that Berman attempted to blackmail Durst for a larger sum of money before submitting herself to questioning by the LAPD. Around the time of the funeral, Durst was in Los Angeles and made contact with several of Berman's friends. The subtext here is that perhaps Durst learned from his mistakes with Kathy, whose friends rallied against him and drove suspicion in his direction. The next development in the case is Durst's arrest for the series beginning death and dismemberment in Galveston, Texas. The trail of death following Durst now totaled the suspicious disappearance of Kathy Durst, a suspected connection to the murder of Susan Berman, and the murder of a neighbor in Galveston. And what does Durst do? He shaves his head and his eyebrows and goes on the run, famously apprehended after attempting to shoplift a $6 chicken salad sandwich. This engaging episode theoretically completes the exploration into the various murders in which Durst is allegedly involved. Jarecki covers a great deal of information, yet always seems to draw logical and clear parallels. Documentary filmmakers often dance between relating the facts and letting their own opinions shape the output. It's unavoidable. It's human nature. In my opinion, the subtext for the episode is that Jarecki believes Durst was heavily involved in Susan Berman's death. The lines are drawn, and the connections are there. It's less clear, though, than the evidence around the Galveston murder that opens the show. What's driving me nuts is how can this man still be walking around after so much evidence exists against him? Guess I'll have to tune in next week to find out. was actually a very well done recap of the episode. Actually, we can call it quits now, folks. See you next week. um, yeah. So some good points brought up. This was a very interesting episode, and I have to say, Jarecki's done a really great job of leaving me feeling want for more each episode. I have decided, hopefully, fingers crossed. Oh, I'm not gonna have time next week. Maybe I'll do it for the last episode. I am gonna go to a Wegmans and buy the freaking sandwich so that I can eat it and tell you. I'm gonna do it on camera so I can tell you if it's good enough to be arrested for. I need to know. Is it that good of a sandwich?
He's he's an idiot.
He is, but like I've got to know now, you know? So I can't do it next week because interestingly enough, I will mention this now. Next week, Friday is San Diego Comic-Con. And while I will not be there, I will be covering the panels. At least Walking Dead and potentially Revival. So Walking Dead Universe and Revival panels with Squawking Dead next week.
Fun fact, that's how she met me.
Is that?
Like, really, really back and forth conversation with you on camera and like me
Okay.
in the comments.
Okay. I was like, I feel like we had messaged on Twitter. I'm sorry, X.
I see Twitter.
Hard to break out of the habit, you know what I mean? Okay, so I was in the middle of pulling up all of the pictures because I was like, oh, there's not that many people we were introduced to this episode. Holy crap, was I wrong? We were introduced to so many people this episode.
Oh, yeah.
There's like 2 more I have to pull up. So like give me 1 second. I'm going to do that really quickly. And I have some interesting information about some of them too. Which makes sense because this is LA exclusive people, you know? So there's like some exciting stuff. All right, Paul.
I sat here trying to figure out, does he think we believe a word that he says?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Is this him? I can't tell and I don't care enough. Okay, moving on. I guess that is him. Sure, fine. Fine, great, whatever. All right, one more. So sorry. Bear with me. A lot of people to look at here. Steven Silverman. Okay. Did we see Steven Silverman yet? We did. It must not have been for very long. Okay. Oh, whoa. Get that straightened out. And then. Okay. All right. That's not what I want. I want this. Okay. All right. So, how'd you feel about the episode?
I'm very intrigued to see how the hell this all is going to play out because, like I said, sir, do you really think I believe a word that you're saying right now?
I know. I know.
And
It's
then,
crazy.
oh my good, then this story just did not go in the direction that I thought it was going. I look up, this lady is dead. I said, what
I
just
know. I know. Where you're like, there surely can't be any more deaths.
happened?
Excuse me. We already have 1 and we assume 2. So, all right. So the episode opens in, I don't know, it brought me back. it's like this what didn't happen in my childhood because this is early 2000s, so I'm like in high school. It brought me back to the times of like watching Unsolved Mysteries and everything. And 2020 and 60 Minutes. Because there's Katie Couric, young Katie Couric. There she is. She states in her transatlantic dialect, she had everything to live for, and yet she just disappeared. Now, new and alarming questions are being raised about what happened to a young wife and medical student here in New York some 20 years ago. 2 decades later, this is like a different person. 2 decades later, Kathy Durst is suddenly more than a memory thanks to a tip from a defendant in an unrelated case. So there was a man named Timothy Martin that was arrested on several counts of public lewdness. He was just exposing himself to ladies. Anyway, he wanted to get his sentence reduced, guarantee it. So he had his lawyer reach out, and he said that he had heard that Kathy Durst was murdered by her husband at their cottage in South Salem, which I'm like, how would he have heard that?
Mm-hmm.
But sure. And so, anyway, this is where we're introduced to Joe Becerra, which I asked you about at the end of last episode. I was like, were we introduced to Joe yet? And you were like, anyway, that's why, because we had not been. So now we're introduced to Joe Becerra. And Joe, oh my gosh, I have so many tabs up. That ain't it. There it is. Here's Joe for you. Joe is a detective for the New York State Police. And so he is investigating this now. And he's looking into the Kathy Durst case. I'm pretty sure at this point they show Gilberta on the screen to say like that she found out that people were going to be looking into Kathy Durst case, which is great. She's ride or die still.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was really excited. And then also Janine Pirro is also really excited because she's like, I'm going to get this guy, you know. If if no one hates Bobby Durst, she's dead. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
she is his number one hater. She's the Kendrick to his Drake, honestly. So, you know, this has been 20 years. This is 20 years after it happened that Kathy disappeared. And so then we are introduced to a woman who lives at Robert Durst's house, like his old cottage. Now, I am not going to pull that up because there weren't any really good pictures of her that didn't kind of give away things for later on. So I'm not going to pull her up. But anyway, she said detectives came. They wanted to look through her house. She had to let them in. They're like cutting down her walls, looking for whatever they can find. Janine Pirro at this point is like, no one ever bothered to check the house, bro. Which is crazy to me. How did no one, like, she disappeared and no one went out there? It's just like a totally different way of handling cases.
So I did want to say that watching this episode kind of reminded me of listening to the Crime Junkie podcast.
Okay.
Because they tend to stumble across the cases where you're like, what were the cops even do? Like, was it their first day? Like, how do you not do these simple,
Well,
like,
it's like
common sense
all
things?
you did, he waltzed into the depart, like into your station. Said, hey, my wife's missing. And you questioned him, but you didn't detain him. You didn't file for a search warrant. Nothing. You just said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that the newspaper started reporting that someone had seen her at the apartment building from a doorman is so nondescript and such poor reporting because who
Mm-hmm.
told you that?
Right.
Was it the doorman? Or was it Susan Berman saying the doorman saw him or her? So
Or did the
like,
doorman say, maybe I saw someone that looks like her. You know what I mean?
But they
Like,
wouldn't talk because they were mute, and they weren't that attractive. Um, um. Anyway, so Janine Pirro was like, she was like, we're gonna search the lake, we're gonna search everything, and we're gonna get this guy, we're gonna nail this guy. Much to her chagrin, does not happen. Does not happen. Um. Now, of course, she's asked. I love seeing the old interviews with Janine because you can just tell she is an up and comer. She's like ready to roll. She's asked, is Robert Durst a suspect? And they're stating like unilaterally, we're not ruling him in, we're not ruling him out. He certainly was a person who had the most information about Kathleen Durst. So they're doing this investigation, right? There's articles pumping out because this is a big deal because Durst is part of a huge real estate mogul empire. And so Drake's like, so you read the article, what happened? And Durst is like, well, just it blew me away. I never even heard of Janine Pirro before. I guarantee that man has Janine Pirro on a list somewhere. You know what I mean? Because the man loves to make a list on a shoddy written little note, So they're searching. What was interesting to me is what was said about the lake search. There was some very specific language used. So Jarecki asks what the divers were looking for. And it is stated that they were looking for body parts and something that could be used as evidence. And Bobby says, but what they don't announce is what they found. That's the way Bobby says it, which is so weird. And then it cuts to Becerra. I think it's one of the detectives. And they're like, Jarecki obviously asked him like what they found. There's a long pause because this guy's just like processing what he's been asked and he doesn't really know how he wants to admit the answer. Mm-hmm. And he just says, nothing of evidentiary value.
What?
It's such a weird, like, why did Bobby state it that way?
Mm-hmm.
What they don't announce is what they found. Are you trying to say what they don't announce is that they found nothing? Because it's way more ominous the way that you said it, dude.
Right.
And then what does that mean? Nothing of evidentiary value. Did you find something, but you can't link it? Like that, because I would be interested to know. Did you find like a woman's shoe or a piece of fabric, but you like can't connect it to Kathy because it's been 20 freaking years?
Because of all the true crime that I've watched and listened to, I always say, like, when they start messing around in these waters, they're gonna find something.
Yeah.
Is it the something we need for this particular case?
Maybe
Who
not.
knows?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we don't know that he was even there. Like, he
Right.
was there, but we don't know that that's where Kathy died. So, and then there's the collect calls from Jersey. Anyway. All right. So then we meet Ed Murphy. Oh God, where is he? I don't even know where he is. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, is this him? No, that's not him. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about Susan Berman because I don't even really care about any of this. Let's talk about Susan Berman because that's what I do care about. Because Susan Berman's story is freaking crazy, man. All right. Here's Susan Berman. Honestly, I'm obsessed. I love her. Do I hate that she loved Bobby? Yes.
Yeah.
Because she is one cool chick.
Mm-hmm.
She's so cool. She finds out the most wild part of her story is that she didn't find out until she was in college that her father was a gangster. Like in the mob. That's crazy to me.
Which means like she never like had, how can I, like, I couldn't figure out a way to put this well, but like she never had that like bubble burst moment of like, oh, my dad's not perfect. Like, not
Yeah.
only was her dad not perfect, he was like a bad guy, but
Yeah. But
she,
how skewed would that be? Because both your parents died when you were really young.
right.
So I can't imagine that her father would have lived into her like 20s anyway, because he does look quite old. He clearly had her when he was older.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Susan with her father. And if you want, I'll look into Susan's father. I just didn't bother to do it, honestly. But I'm happy to. Let's see, shall we? Susan Berman's father.
Like, even, how she feels about her father after learning everything about him. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you really blame her? Because she grew up idolizing him.
Of course, as we all do with our parents until the bubble is burst.
And then, like, that's that's her permanent, that's his permanent place in her heart now. Like,
Yes.
because the bubble wasn't burst before he died, so it's just, that's, she's still gonna idolize him. You know
One,
what
you
I'm
can tell. You can tell because she has his mugshot up in her house.
Yeah.
And so, of course, she's going to end up being friends with Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
He's the same kind of person. He went through the same kind of stuff when he was younger, and he's rich and he's powerful. I'm shocked that there was not more of a romantic aspect to this, honestly.
Yeah.
And maybe she wanted it, but maybe he didn't, because it seems like he goes for kind of a specific type of
Yeah.
woman based on the way that Kathy looked and based on how his second wife looks, kind of like a specific type of like petite, like little, I don't know, blondie brunette kind of ladies. But anyway,
Mhm.
um so David Berman is Susan Berman's father, and he was a Jewish American organized crime figure active in Sioux City, Iowa, the Twin Cities, and the Las Vegas Strip. He was a casino gambling pioneer in Las Vegas, where he was a partner with mobster Bugsy Siegel at the Flamingo Hotel. And Berman died in 1957 during surgery.
What?
That's how he died. Surgery. So Berman was born into an Orthodox Jewish family in Odessa, Russian Empire. His father was a former rabbinical student who played the violin. And when he was a young child, his father departed for America and settled in Ashley, North Dakota, on land provided by Baron Morris de Hirsch's Jewish Colonization Association. The elder Berman then sent for his wife and children, and David's mother was reportedly horrified after getting off the train and realizing that they had exchanged the relative warmth of Odessa for the icy cold of the Great Plains. After failing on the land, the Bermans moved to Sioux City, Iowa, where David began his criminal career. At the age of 13, he ran a crew of teenage thugs committing petty extortions and eventually a string of illegal moonshine distilleries during the Prohibition era.
Oh my.
He then went on to supplement his earnings by also leading an armed robbery crew.
What is happening?
I don't know. You want to know what his gang name was? I don't think you're ready. Davy the Jew. I was not prepared for that at
What?
all. In 1927, yeah, like what? Berman was allegedly, I'm going to start calling Dave that, was allegedly recruited from the Midwest by the New York City based Bugs and Meyer mob in order to kidnap wealthy criminals for ransom. However, after Berman and Joe Marcus's kidnapping of Brooklyn real estate baron, how ironic, and bootlegger Abraham Charlin, both kidnappers were surprised by the NYPD while waiting for the $20,000 ransom payment in Central Park. Marcus drew his sidearm and was shot dead. When offered a deal after his arrest in return for testifying against those who had hired him, meaning Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, Berman famously quipped, "Hell, the worst I can get is life." For his role in solving the Charlene kidnapping, NYPD detective John Cortez became the only police officer in that department's history to be honored or to be awarded with a second Medal of Honor.
Wow.
Berman was convicted of felonious assault and sentenced to 12 years in Sing Sing prison. After being paroled after 7.5 years and first receiving the blessing of Mo Sedway and Meyer Lansky, Berman moved to Minneapolis, because you can't move if you're in the mafia without someone's blessing, where he operated a major illegal gambling ring in rivalry with the Arizona Syndicate, led by fellow Jewish gangsters Yiddy Bloom and Kid Can, and the Irish mob, led by Tommy Banks, which is like, what's happening in the early 19th? Not the 19th century, the 20th century. What is happening in the earliest 20th century? But whatever. One of Berman's most feared enforcers during his Twin Cities years was Israel Alderman, a notoriously homicidal Jewish hitman from North Minneapolis who was nicknamed Ice Pick Willie.
What the?
Davy's brother, Chicky Berman, also worked for him. He was nicknamed Davy the Jew and led his organization first from the Radisson Hotel and then from the Dickman Luxury Hotel. An FBI report says of Berman during this era, inasmuch as he had tasted confinement for a considerable length of time, he is a most dangerous type of law violator due to the great price he's willing to pay in order to avoid another state of confinement. Has a great ability to control of his emotions, and where prior to being sent away to Sing Sing prison for a lengthy term, he was considered tough. Subsequent to his release, he is considered vicious. Has a short, choppy type of speech, was not too well educated, but disguised this fact with little conversation. End quote. According to his daughter Susan's memoir, Easy Street, Davy Berman ordered the contract killings of 2 Italian-American brothers who had been sent by Chicago outfit acting boss Al Capone to organize a mafia crime family in the Twin Cities, because Capone was very active in the Midwest, particularly Chicago and into Wisconsin. The Chicago Wise Guys murders allegedly resulted in a sit-down between Capone and Berman's protectors in the Genovese crime family of New York City. Capone demanded Berman's assassination, and the New York mobsters spoke in Berman's defense. And at the end of the sit-down, Capone grudgingly backed down, but vowed to kill Berman if he ever came to Chicago. According to Twin Cities crime historian Paul Maccabee, FBI files reveal that David Berman contributed very heavily to Marvin L. Klein's mayoral campaign, under the understanding that if Klein won the election, Berman would take over illegal gambling in Minneapolis. Therefore, during Klein's 1941 to 1945 term as mayor, Berman briefly eclipsed his rivals and became the leader of the Minneapolis criminal underworld. According to Susan Berman, when Klein was the mayor, Tommy Banks and Kid Can had to work for her father, which that's a daughter who really idolizes her father, so I don't know how accurate that is, but who knows. According to both David's daughter Susan and Neil Carlin, David Berman also used his crew to intimidate and terrorize the Silver Shirts, an anti-Semitic militia financed by Nazi Germany. So get it, Berman? Period. Period. Terrorize them. Berman once personally physically assaulted Silver Shirt leader William Dudley Pelley and warned his followers to keep their anti-Semitic rhetoric out of Minneapolis or else. Anyway, interesting little side note, but what a guy. what a guy. Anyway, so that's Susan Berman's father, Davy Berman. Anyway, it makes sense that she ended up with like kind of hanging out with Bobby as a result, as we said. So what's the deal? Susan Berman, she's a friend of Bobby's. They were super close. She protected Bobby with the press after Kathy's disappearance. She often like went out and would like talk to the press for him. He didn't want to deal with it. So Bobby says Susan and I would spend a lot of time together. We could talk. We had the thing in common. Both of her parents died when she was young, and I had one parent die when I was young. And I think maybe Bobby liked the fact that she had a mobster father.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like he was like proud of that, which is telling.
I mean, she was. So,
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
fitting.
Now, her mother had been a tap dancer, but she gave it up when she got married to Berman. Um, and again, it was thought that she died of suicide, but foul play was maybe involved. And then also, now we found out Dave Berman died in surgery, which is wild. I don't know. Maybe it was on purpose. You never know. Never know. Anyway, Susan found out while she was at college because her friend told her you should look at this crime book that just came out.
Oh, yeah.
Her dad was in it, which is crazy. And apparently there is some information that he was a bank robber at some time, but we didn't see that just now, so I don't know if that's true. But anyway, so she met Bobby and essentially was like, this guy's like my dad. I love him. And I hate that she was like, he's constantly being persecuted. It's because, girl, that got you killed. That got you killed. Just even knowing him. But anyway, so, it goes into more about Kathy being gone and having disappeared and yada, yada, yada. Then we get into more about Susan Berman. So Susan Berman ends up being found dead, execution style, in her house, which I think her house was probably the most shocking thing about her because of what Mela, her stepdaughter, said. Mela said that Susan loved to shop. That was like one of her favorite things to do. But her house was bare bones. It's like she had sold off everything that ever meant anything to her. Everything was gone. The mattresses were bare. I mean, it looked like, it's like cinder blocks and 2x4s
Yeah.
to put
Perfect.
together your furniture. Like I mean, I've been in a house like that. It's like you're making it work, but you don't really have much money. So then we're introduced to several of Susan's friends. And so I will show you. Let's see. Nope, 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 nope. Why is this backwards? Here it is. Let me show you Kim Langford. What the heck is going on here? Where is it? Oh my God. Finally. Okay. Kim Langford, friend of Susan Berman. You probably can't see this, but it says around the time of her death, Susan Berman told her close friend Kim Langford she was working on something big, but would not reveal the details. Now, I want to give you a little bit of information about Kim Langford because, as it turns out, Kim Langford isn't just Susan Berman's friend. No, she's an American businesswoman and retired actress, best known for her role as Ginger Ward on Knots Landing. Um, she was born in Montebello, California, and she made her screen debut in 1976 with a movie called Harry and Walter Go to New York. She later became a television actress, appearing on episodes of sitcoms like Happy Days. She was cast as the female lead opposite Joe Namath, which is crazy, in a sitcom on NBC called The Waverly Wonders. And then she played a leading role in Malibu Beach. She landed the gig in Knots Landing in 1979 and was on the show for the first 4 seasons. In 1980, she had a role opposite Chuck Norris in the action film The Octagon. And in following years, co-starred with Don Meredith, another football player, which is so weird, in the thriller Terror Among Us. So she was opposite Joe Namath, a football player, and then Don Meredith, a football player again. After leaving Knots Landing, she guest starred on Fantasy Island, The Love Boat, and Cheers. And in 1988, she had a supporting role in the horror movie Cameron's Closet and was a regular cast member in the ABC detective drama Murphy's Law. She was also in the 90s. She played in other things like In the Heat of the Night, Chicago Hope, Diagnosis Murder, personal favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you loved that too, Takeerah.
Absolutely.
What was it about old Dick Van Dyke that we were just so interested in?
I couldn't even tell you because I literally watched everything Dick Van Dyke related.
I loved him. I loved him with my whole heart.
Yeah.
Do you think it had to do with Nick at Night's block
Yes.
party
Yep.
or summer block party? For those of you who don't know, after a certain hour, Nickelodeon, I think it was 9, Nickelodeon became Nick at Night. And they aired all sorts of old television shows. Mary Tyler Moore, The Munsters, Dick Van Dyke Show, I Dream of Jeannie,
Bewitched.
But my
My threesome.
favorite time was every summer, every night was Nick at Night's summer block party. And each day of the week had a different show. My personal favorite being Mondays. It was only 1 year that it was this, but Mondays were the Munsters. And I loved the Munsters. But I did also watch a lot of Dick Van Dyke.
I did too. Like,
oh, Newhart was also on the block party at one point.
I'm pretty sure all that Nick at Night is the reason why I watch all the weird things that I watch.
Probably. Really opened your eyes that like it didn't have to be geared toward you for you to enjoy it.
Right. Like Bewitched made me like Charmed. Mr. Ed made me like Dr. Dolittle and other movies with things that talk that shouldn't.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I could not get down with Mr. Ed. I hated that show.
Really?
Oh yeah, as soon as it came on, I turned it off.
Like I even watched Lassie.
I did watch Lassie, but Lassie used to come on early in the morning.
See, yeah,
that's why I watched Lassie
all freaking day.
If we had cable, that TV was on because we didn't have cable all the time. So when we did have cable, oh, when I tell you the TV was on 24/7. Because we didn't get to enjoy that stuff very often. All right. So anyway, Diagnosis Murder. She was also in the movie Missing Pieces, which starred Eric Idle, and Night of the Running Man. But it was a direct-to-video movie. She was also co-presenter on a cult public access television cable TV series called The Count Smokula Show or Smokula. She reprised her Knots Landing character in Knots Landing Back to the Cul-de-Sac in 97. She retired from acting in 2000. So she retired when Susan Berman died. Like around that time. She did end up creating her own horse business in Colorado called Kim Langford's Living Horsemanship. She was, this is really interesting. Okay. In the 70s and 80s, Langford lived with and was romantically involved with Warren Zevon, famous singer of Werewolves of London. Just an interesting fact. All right. Anyway, we will move on. So what I've loved about both Kathy Durst friends and also Susan Berman's friends is that they are pretty ride or die for her, like as well. They assume that Robert did it also. And they were like calling the police saying like, Robert did it. You should look into him. He's suspicious. So it's really interesting that all of these women involved in Kathy and Susan's lives, like, even though it's like Susan may have been partially responsible for something that happened to Kathy, you know, like a tertiary, an accomplice potentially, there's still that, like, they still surrounded themselves with women who were like that guy, which I love. We also meet Linda Obst or Obst. It's OBST. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. You never know. But here's Linda. And Linda also lived in LA. So, of course, she's also somebody.
Mhm.
She was a famous film producer and author, and her notable works include Sleepless in Seattle and Interstellar.
You know, I was like, what? I guess it's kind of easy at certain points to forget who his family is. And
Mm-hmm.
so we would see these people, and I'm like, how the heck does this guy, how is he always in rooms with people like this? And, you know, you can easily forget he just comes from
He
money.
comes from money. That's why he's a nepo baby.
Mm
Um, so Obst or Obst, I'm gonna say Obst, Obst. I don't know. Anyway, she was born in New York City in 1950. Um, and she ends up working as an editor for the New York Times Magazine before she moves to LA, with her husband at the time. His name was David. And was offered a job starting a production company. So her first role in film was in 1979. She worked in development for Peter Goober. Goober, yeah. Becoming vice president of creative affairs, and then she moved to development for the Geffen Film Company, which she got her first associate producer credit on Flashdance,
hmm.
which is crazy. Um, In 1986, she partnered with Deborah Hill to form one of the first all-female production companies, Hill Obst Productions, combining Obst development experience with Hill's hands-on production skills. And their first film was Chris Columbus's directorial debut, a personal favorite. It should, if you haven't watched it, you need to. The 1987 film Adventures in Babysitting. I love this. Other films included Heartbreak Hotel and The Fisher King. The Fisher King was critically successful, winning an Academy Award and totaling 4 nominations. And after The Fisher King, Ops and Hill did part ways. So Ops then became an in-studio producer, and in 1992, she produced Nora Ephron's directorial debut, This Is My Life. And she continued working with Efron into Sleepless in Seattle. She also did One Fine Day, Someone Like You, Contact, Hope Floats. This is crazy. The Siege. This is like 90s classics. This is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I love.
Um, in 1989, she founded a production company, Linda Obst Productions, initially based at Columbia Pictures. It moved to 20th Century Fox in 93, and by 2007, the company was named Obst Rosen Productions. In 2009, she completed principal photography as a producer on The Invention of Lying, which critically did really poorly, but is a very funny movie. Originally titled This Side of the Truth, and the directing and co-writing debut of Ricky Gervais and Matthew Robinson, starring Gervais and Jennifer Garner. It was released in October 2009, and she was the producer of the movie Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging, which sounds extremely British, which was released by Nickelodeon in 2008. It was by Gurinder Chadha. She did Bend It Like Beckham. So
Mm.
she was interested in telling like stories of Indian people growing up in England. In 2014, Obst collaborated with director Christopher Nolan and co-produced Interstellar, a science fiction drama starring Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. And it marked the first time her production company, Linda Obst Productions was credited with a production. She was the author of the memoir Hello, He Lied, detailing her experiences in the modern studio system. And in 2013, she wrote Sleepless in Hollywood about the shift from character driven films to blockbusters. Obbs was one of the central figures in the battle over the Richard Preston book, Crisis in the Hot Zone. Anyway, very interesting women that Susan surrounded herself with. Very interesting women. She also surrounded herself with another friend, Julie Smith. Julie Smith isn't famous to my knowledge, but you know what she is? She's a bad bee. She's a bad bee who hates Bobby, and so we love her for that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Okay, so then we learn about Susan Berman's husband. I'm not even going to mention him. This is not really worth it. Something Kaufman. Anyway, the marriage falls apart rather quickly, but during the process of being married, she ends up being a stepmother to 2 children who she ends up loving so much and who love her so much. They choose to live with her over their own father after the divorce, which is insane, but like good for them, I guess.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. So Mela is not talked about or like on as much as her brother, but this is Mela. She said she really enjoyed being around Susan Berman, that she loved going shopping with her. She said she was like a real bright light in her life, which I loved. And then her brother's name is Sarab. So this is Sarab Kaufman. And what's interesting about Sarab is that you're like, oh, what a sweet story. Like, oh, great. And he sees Susan right before he leaves to go on a trip. He goes out of the country and he comes back and Susan is dead. And a lot of Susan's friends are like, Bobby did it. But Sarab is like, no, he didn't. I don't see how that's possible. And Sarab ends up befriending Bobby.
Of course.
Now, to be fair, Bobby shortly thereafter becomes, arrested and then on the run for murdering Morris Black and then pretends to be Morris Black. So friendship doesn't really go anywhere. But Bobby does agree to give him $25,000 for 4 years to pay for his college. So $25,000 every year for 4 years in order for Sarah to go to college. So of course you don't think he did it. Because why would you? He's such a nice guy. He's paying for your college. And to be fair, when you see Sarah, he's like a monstrously huge dude, right? He's like super tall. Bobby looks like a child next to him.
Yeah.
Like, of course you're not worried about Bobby.
Right.
He's just like a little shrimp of a guy. Okay. We also meet Susan's cousin. A couple of Susan's cousins, actually. And let me get you all of their names. We meet, let's see, Tom Patton Sr. and Tom Patton Jr., who also don't necessarily believe that it was Bobby. They do buy into the fact that it may have been a mob hit. I think that's only because she was shot execution style.
Mm-hmm.
No other aspect of that story makes sense. Because I don't know. To me, doesn't it seem like Susan's the kind of person that may like embellish the truth a little bit?
Yeah.
Right? Make it seem like everything's hunky-dory when maybe it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it seems like she told all of her friends she was really onto something. She was going to crack it big time. But maybe she's just a hopeless romantic and like hopelessly hopeful. Do you know what I mean? I've met people like that in my life. I might be one of them. Like just endlessly hopeful that everything's going to work out and like you're going to hit it big eventually. I don't want to hit it big ever, but in every other regard, I'm like very hopeful. Then we also meet, this is Denny Marcus, Susan's cousin. Now, Susan was supposed to go over to Denny's house for Christmas and she didn't show up. And so Denny was really concerned that there was something going on. So she called Susan's house and the answering machine picked up. And so she's like leaving the answering machine, like, where are you? We're here. The food's ready. So-and-so's here. So-and-so's here. And who picks up the phone but a detective to share with her on Christmas, their family Christmas, that Susan's dead. It's heartbreaking. I don't know how you get over it.
Yeah.
I really don't. We then are introduced to two other people. Yet in this episode, we are introduced to Paul Coulter, who is a detective in LA. Because obviously now there's going to be an investigation into Susan's death. The other aspect of this is that, NYPD was going to come out to talk to Susan. She happens to die very conveniently at that same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then LAPD sent a note. A note. You know what? Let me pull up both notes. I want to see the note from Kathy's, like from the house's garbage. And I want to see the other note. Let me see if I can find both. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Okay. Here's the Beverly Hills one. Okay, got that. Let's see. Can I find the list? Interesting. Okay, they don't look anything alike. So. But what does Bobby say about that? Okay. Here's the note where they were like, what is this? Him planning how to kill someone and hide the body? Okay. So here's the note. Bobby says about this other note, this note that says Beverly Hills Police where Beverly is spelled wrong. Okay. And it's, which is interesting because Beverly is spelled wrong, but cadaver is the word used. The word cadaver would suggest some level of intelligence.
Right.
Okay. This suggests some level of you being a freaking idiot. Okay. But maybe you just don't know that Beverly Hills is spelled without an E there. I don't know. But Bobby says about this, well, they wrote in all caps to hide their handwriting. What would make you say that, bro?
Mm-hmm.
What in the world would make you say that? Now, unfortunately, the other list that we have is written in cursive, like a cursive handwriting. I don't know. One is sloppier, one is more clean, but if you're really trying to hide your handwriting,
right,
you can. You can hide your handwriting. People have done it. So, I don't know, just kind of interesting. And then maybe Steven Silverman, who's a friend of Susan Berman, is in this episode. But honestly, I don't even remember if he was or not. I'll show you him. You can tell me. You watched it more recently than I did. I watched it several days ago. Was he in this episode? He might not be. He could be in the next one.
I don't think so.
Okay. He looks like kind of familiar, but I don't know if he looks familiar from being in the episode or just from me looking at all these photos over and over again. Okay. So anyway, let me pull this up. that pretty much wraps this up. But let's see if there's anything else to really bring up. Is there anything I missed, do you think?
Um, no, I just when you brought up the friends, I just was thinking about her face when she was talking about what oh my god.
Susan?
Yes, what
Okay.
her apartment looked like.
What with what?
With like how her apartment looked
Oh, yeah.
in comparison to like how she knew her to live her life basically.
Yeah.
Um I don't know why that moment stuck out to me so much, but I think it was just really like her face, just her whole demeanor.
It's so heartbreaking
Yeah.
because that's how you died. Is there in that house that what didn't reflect you at all.
Mhm.
Not that your belongings reflect you because everyone's going to remember you for who you are. And it seems like although Susan may have been misguided in her relation with Bobby, she seems like she was a fun person to be around and she was
Yeah.
desperate at the end of her life.
I hate to even say this, but I was kind of shocked like at the friends that she had and the way that everyone felt about her.
Hmm.
Um and I don't know why that shocked me because like I said, I don't even want to pass judgment on how she feels about her dad because it's a unique situation.
I think so too. But it is interesting because the documentary leads you to go in kind of on the offense about her, like I don't like her, she's helping Bobby, like all of this
Mhm.
stuff, and you're like, and clearly Kathy was killed by him, and so you
Right.
already have jumped to all these conclusions in your head, and so I think it's easy to dislike her at the beginning, but then you get her story and you find out about what kind of person she is and who she was to those kids, and you're
Mhm.
kind of like, oh, okay, well there is like another side to this,
Right.
and really the problem is just Bobby.
Right.
I did want to mention that the city in New Jersey in which he made the collect phone calls from is Ship Bottom.
Oh
He
yeah.
does deny that he did that.
Mhm.
He denies that. And he's so he's so condescending to Jarecki. Because Jarecki is like asking him if he was there. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so Jarecki says, you used to call the office collect. Oh, all the time, says Bobby. Tell me about that. I would call the office collect. Just like he's so pompous. And then Jarecki's like, okay, well, why did you do that though? He said, I didn't want to pay for it. Let's Seymour pay for it. The only reason I'm calling is because he wants me to call. Jarecki's like, okay, well, there were a series of collect calls made from Ship Bottom, New Jersey. And Bobby goes, that's on the coast somewhere.
Mhm.
Like trying to feign like he doesn't know where it is. And Jarecki says, yeah, so there are 3 calls made to the Durst organization from Ship Bottom, and you were the collect call guy. He says, so I think the speculation is, well, Bob must have made those phone calls. And Bob goes, except Bob didn't make those phone calls. Bob was not in Ship Bottom. And Jarecki's like, well, can you think of any reason why these phone calls, these collect calls, would be made to the Durst organization during the day? He said, I have no idea who made the calls. He's like, were there other people that you knew of that would call the company collect? And he said, several, yes. Which, like, everyone who works for them is like, no, it was Bobby and his weirdo dad. It was these 2 weirdos are the only ones who did it. And he said, several, yes. And he's like, executives, family members, like who? And he's like, they had a beach house and they were calling and getting one of the receptionists, not the usual receptionist. See, he wants to like paint this picture that like, well, it was happening, but nobody knew except for me to accept the calls. And that had happened periodically. And this is what I hated was he like, instead of saying that had happened periodically, he tries to like cover his butt. That had happened periodically that spring, that summer, that
Mhm.
fall. It's makes me angrier and angrier the longer we go on.
Man, I'm ready to choke him.
I know. I know. And how is he out? How is he out? It drives me crazy. I know. I can't wait for you to see the end of this. Truly, I can't wait. I'm so excited. This ending is so wild. It's like you are never going to see any of it coming. I'm so happy. Anyway, I guess that's it for tonight. It seems like we really covered it all. So next week, same time, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will, and that'll be Friday the 25th, we'll be covering episode 4 entitled The State of Texas versus Robert Durst. Finally getting to the case for Morris Black. And that episode originally aired on March 1st, 2015. So we'll get to that next week. Before we close up, let me make sure that I throw this up on the screen, because if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe or at least like the video. Please, please, please. Such a big support to me. And if you want to, head on over to ko-fi.com/Punky Bruister. It's PUNKYBRUISETER. I have been trying to update more frequently there. And you get more updates and sooner there than you do in the YouTube community tab, although that also exists. So feel free to leave comments or whatever you want to do there.
But
Takeerah, do you have Ko-fi?
I do.
Okay. Well, then Takeerah also has Ko-fi, and it's ko-fi.com/Connie Dixon for life.
More than likely, yes.
Okay. All right. And that's with the number 4, people. And life is spelled with a Y.
Oh, I forgot to put my light on today.
You did. It's okay. Anyway, details about Takeerah are in the description box below. And again, if you would like to see me on screen, I don't know why, but if you do enjoy that, and are also interested in what's going on at San Diego Comic-Con, please make sure to head on over to Squawking Dead next week around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to see us start talking about TWDU, the Walking Dead universe, for those that aren't in the know.
Ship Bottom is 5 hours from me.
Oh. Well, you could go there and film, and I can go to Wegmans and get the chicken sandwich. All right. Well, we will see you next week for another episode of the Limited Series Lounge. We're excited to see what is in store for Robert Durst. He obviously gets off scot-free. How? I don't know. But we will find out.
Money.
He did pay the 2 most expensive defense lawyers in Galveston, so makes sense. All right. We love you guys so much. Thank you. If you're watching this after the fact, somebody is here. I don't know who you are. You're silent, but we love you anyway. You sweet, sweet angel babies. We'll see you next week. Make sure you like this video and drop a comment below if we missed anything, or you just want to say, hey, I agree. I hate him too.